Okay. Bismillah. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Peter Gould, and I'm really honored to be your host for today's 5th GIES webinar. And today's session is entitled The New Age of Digital Retail in Light of the Pandemic. It's organized by Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center and Dubai Chamber, and in strategic partnership with Refinitiv. So guys, thank you so much for making the time. We know it's a very busy year and everyone's had a lot of online events, but we really want to make this one engaging, interactive. It's more of a workshop style event, so we'd love your contribution. We're looking forward to making the event valuable and interactive and useful for everyone that's joining us. So we'll be asking you to post some questions, make comments. We have some polls, and we'd love to receive some of your input as we'll be going through some amazing panels today. So you can do that just by using the chat feature on the side of the screen. You should see a little option for that, so feel free to use that at any point. You can also use that if you have any technical issues or questions. You can just go ahead and ask there. Now, one useful thing to know with WebEx, the platform we're using, you can also change the video size and adjust it to your preference. So depending on which platform or device you're using, you might have a grid option. You can change the size of the slides, the video, speakers, and to however you like. So the focus really on the session today is being able to learn for some really esteemed pioneers and leaders who'll be able to share some of their stories of success and what they've learned during this time of transformation, and possibly some things to avoid and possibly some learnings that even as recently in the last few months, what things are working. So I'd love to ask everyone joining firstly, feel free to use the chat window there. Where are you actually joining us from? Where are you right now? And tell us about if you yourselves, perhaps you're building an online brand, perhaps you have yourself, you're involved with an e-commerce brand that's changing or transforming. Maybe you're part of a larger organization that's involved in supporting some e-commerce activities. Every organization has been affected or changed in some way through the pandemic, so it'd be great to hear you share in the chat what's your story and how we hope in this workshop we can help each one of you. So just before we go ahead to our first speaker, I'd love just to give a little bit of quick context and overview about the context and the topic, what brings us here. So as we all know, COVID-19 has really quite dramatically disrupted the retail sector this year, and it's causing this quite remarkable change in e-commerce. So for example, in the UAE, the consumer demand for e-commerce services has jumped around 300% in the first 5 months of 2020. While in Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim country, the e-commerce gross merchandise value is expected to reach $40 billion this year, and that will make it the 3rd highest globally. So it's quite incredible. And as consumers like all of us, and continue to engage and use online shopping as our main retail channel, the e-commerce businesses and even traditional businesses are looking at what's the right direction, what's the right approach, what tools, what resources, and the knowledge that we need to have, the expertise to lead their organizations in the right direction. So that's why we're here today to learn for some really great examples of leading organizations that have contributed their time, and we're looking forward to hearing from all of them. So, but firstly, we're very honored and pleased that Mr. Abdullah Al-Awar has been able to join us. He's the CEO of Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center. Abdullah, thank you so much for joining. It's really a pleasure to have, and thank you for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Peter. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Glad to be here today, and I wanted to thank everyone for joining the session today. Of course, starting with you, Peter, for joining and moderating, and also Sarah, where her insights, I'm sure, will be very, very, very interesting. I believe it's an interesting topic, personally speaking. I think, the e-commerce and the digital retail aspect, especially in light of the pandemic, has seen tremendous, in my personal opinion, has seen a tremendous shift. Some of which I think was caused by the term, forgive me for saying, we were left with no choice, except to go online and to do business online. And I think for what it's worth, I'm sure when people will see what were the quote unquote positive aspects the pandemic, this will be definitely one of them. How will that, impact the Islamic economy sector per se? I think it will be interesting to hear from your thoughts on that. But I do feel that over the past period, especially during the middle of the pandemic, even those who are a bit old-fashioned, forgive me for saying that, were kind of forced to utilize a lot of the digital retail e-commerce platforms. And it'll be interesting to see whether once they went through the experience, they were going to be shifting permanently to it or not. So definitely interesting times. And I think this is why we at the Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center continue to hold these Global Islamic Economy Summit series, because I do believe that the insights provided will be beneficial for all. So again, excited to be here, and I wanted to thank our partners Refinitiv and Dubai Chamber for co-hosting the GIES series, and of course looking forward to continuing this dialogue with you throughout the year and next year, and hopefully seeing you all live and in person at the Global Islamic Economy Summit in November, the 1st and the 2nd of 2021. Again, thank you very much everyone for joining, and I wish you have an insightful and enlightening discussion.
Thank you, Bella. I appreciate those remarks and insights. I think especially it's helpful coming from yourself, seeing this, really leading the change over the years that, DIDC has been helping facilitate and host these fantastic events that have really been a magnet for many, many wonderful activities in the Islamic economy space. And in particular, this year, looking at the leading role I think that DIDC is helping play through this series, and really at a time of bringing people together to have these conversations in a range of sectors has been great. So thank you, Abdullah, for your remarks, and it's really a blessing to have you open the session. Thank you, Abdullah. Have a beautiful day. So thank you. We'd love to, we want to keep the session quite interactive, and we've got some comments coming through now. So thank you for sharing those, and quite a global audience we can see. Now, what we'd like to do is actually have our first poll question here. So the first one's a very simple one that probably affects all of us. So this is something anyone online can answer, is how often do you yourself actually buy products online? And perhaps that's changed. Maybe you were extremely often, you're buying every day, every couple of days, quite often, so maybe once a week, moderate, once a month, slightly often or not at all. So it'd be quite interesting to see. Now, we've only got about 30 seconds to answer, so it'd be great. Now, I'm going to go ahead without biasing the poll. I'm going to go ahead and click A. And I think I speak for probably a number of parents this year as well that have been in lockdown and, looking for what are the kinds of options and experiences that people would have in buying things that have been arriving often. So the poll is about to end shortly, and it'd be good to see what the answers will be. And I imagine that some of the trends have changed over the course of the year as well, from not so often to often as more. So we'll see those answers will come up soon. But while that's being tallied up here, we're going to just go ahead and move along, because I'd love to really introduce someone that I'm so pleased she was able to join us. Now, Sarah Ansari, just checking you can hear us. Welcome, Sarah. Assalamu alaikum. You can hear me okay? Great. I think, are you just on mute? There we go. Yep. Great.
Yes. Wa alaikum salam, Peter. I can hear you fine.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Great to see you. And I know it's quite late in the evening where you are, so thank you so much for making the time to join. It's really interesting.
I promise not to turn into a pumpkin. It's past midnight.
No problem. Well, if you need some caffeine, it's okay. I think in the year of global transformation and the year of the year of adapting to our online across many time zones, then, we're getting used to the different time zones. So for those who haven't come across Sarah before, anyone will know who's been in the Islamic economy space or really in the fashion e-commerce space globally will know the brand Artizara is quite a pioneering brand, and it's been around for many years, and I think has probably, Sarah, seen quite a few versions of change in that time. So, Sarah, we'd love to invite you to share a little bit about that story and some of your experience, because I find that it's very inspiring, and I think many of our audience will appreciate that. And what you've called the conversation, I think, is really relevant and timely for all of us. Is this year that we're facing, is this a crisis or opportunity? How to survive and thrive on this retail roller coaster? So looking forward to hearing from you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Peter. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you to each and every one of you for attending today. The new age of digital retail in the light of the pandemic, that is the topic. But the question for me is not the pandemic, although I'm very grateful to the Almighty to be alive, and business, yes, has been good. The question is not simply digital. It is not retail. We all have a lot of stuff. Do we really need to buy more? But my question, the main question for me is the new age. We are going through a very exciting new age where the world is shifting and changing all around us at warp speed. And at the heart of this new age is the idea that everything, including us as humans, can be digitized. My physical traits, my likes, my dislikes, thoughts, and feelings are all bits of data that can be dissociated, parsed, and atomized, and then sold to the highest bidder. What does all this mean? Who are we? Where are we headed? Why do we do what we do? One of the things that's happened during the pandemic is that it's given me a lot of time to reflect on the why of things. And I believe that if we can figure out the why of things, then the what and the how falls into place. That is true for us as people, and it's true for us in business. So I'd like to share with you the story of why I founded Artizara. My story is not unique. I'm a really unremarkable person with a big dream, but the story is worth telling because it's the story of millions of unremarkable people just like me with big dreams. There's something really magical about creating beautiful things, and there's something natural within our souls that makes us appreciate beauty. The new digital age hasn't changed our very analog love for beauty. There's a prophetic saying, Allah is beautiful and loves beauty. My love for creating beautiful things goes back to when I was a little girl, watching my mom bent over her sewing machine, making clothes. Every colorful scrap of fabric in her sewing basket was just so full of possibility. Clothes are like our second skin, a part of our identity. My mom taught me to make clothes by piece, but also to have pride in who I was. Isn't it really interesting that so much has changed? But we basically make clothes the same way we did 5,000 years ago, by cutting pieces of cloth and sewing them together. And we still judge people in a split second based on what they wear. I arrived in the U.S. in the 90s, a freshly minted MBA and a new mother. And being Muslim in the West is a really interesting experience. It's like you're a transplanted tree trying to lay down roots in a new biosphere while staying true to your DNA. I often get asked this question, where are you from? Which is kind of code for, you're unfamiliar, who are you? And, then 9/11 happened, and the weeks that followed are very vivid in my mind still. All of a sudden, this tragedy just flung the Muslim community in the U.S. into such sharp focus. Who are Muslims was all of a sudden a question that was on national television. And then Ramadan arrived one night, and after suhoor, I was just laying in bed tossing and turning, and it was as if somebody whispered in my ear, start an Islamic lifestyle brand. And that was a wild idea because nobody in my family had ever started a business. That was for crazy people who took risks and lost lots of money. But by dawn, the voice in my head was so loud and kept saying, this is the answer to the who am I question. So let the beauty of what you love be what you do, said Rumi. And so Artizara was born. Have you ever been to an ancient mosque and looked up at the ceiling to see all the intricate patterns that go on forever? For me, they're a metaphor for the universe, how we're all interconnected. Life is complex, it is beautiful, and we're all in this together. That is what Artizara aspires to become. A lifestyle brand, an Islamic art and culture brand that tells beautiful stories just waiting to be told in the Muslim world. And I want to invite you into this story. It's a story of beauty, of warmth, of meaning. It's a humble story, but also a powerful one. Come with me and join this story. So, is this a crisis or an opportunity? Will we survive and thrive on this retail roller coaster? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, we want to enjoy the ride and we want our legacy to be memorable. And for that, we need to understand why we're on this roller coaster in the first place. To thrive, we will need to be different from the faceless giants of commerce that are as much in the business of selling us as they are in the business of selling things. It is said that Amazon perfected the act of buying, but killed the art of shopping. It is massive, it is standardized, and it's superbly convenient. We all shop on Amazon. But when was the last time buying something on Amazon gave you a warm feeling in your heart? To thrive as an independent business in a world dominated by giants, we need to understand and satisfy these basic human needs in more than a superficial way. Recognition. I have a unique identity as a human being, the opposite of bits of data. What does that mean for us as businesses? Are we making our customers feel valued and respected? Connection. I need to be part of a community. Are we making our customers feel like they're part of something bigger? Intimacy. I have a deep and personal need for personal relationships. Are our interactions with our customers personal? Beauty. I, as a human, have a natural affinity for beauty. Do customers experience beauty when they interact with us, with our online presence and our products? And meaning. We need a bigger purpose in life. What is our bigger mission? And how does that align with our customers? If you can answer the above, you'll be poised to not just survive, but thrive in the new digital age. Thank you.
Wow, that was really beautifully said, Sarah. I feel like you've just gone very deep and brought the whole panel and experience to a very special place, and I think really going to the heart of things. I really, really loved how you were sharing on the depth of the why, and in particular talking about the interconnectedness. And I don't know if you feel, but this year in particular, I feel there's a lot of soul searching. There's a lot of people seeking purpose and meaning, not just in their lives and their journey, but also in their businesses and the authentic connections that you mentioned about, to see people feel valued and the warmth. I mean, I loved how you put that, Sarah.
Yeah, for sure. I think, we have certainly, hunkered down in our homes with our loved ones and our immediate, family members, which has been fabulous, really focusing on what's important. But what's also happened is it has distanced us and isolated us from many other communities that we're a part of. And, you start to notice that after a while. So I think any kind of online experience, retail or otherwise, will have to somehow incorporate that human connection, that sort of, that feeling that, we are connecting as human beings. That's going to have to be key going forward. And yes, digital retail and digital e-commerce is here to stay.
Yeah, beautifully said, and that's great. And I know Artizara itself, with you leading that and build quite a, community of, with over some years, and this year in particular, I remember you sharing a little earlier how, that connectedness is really shining. So I think it's a great example for anyone who's online, maybe, thinking about your own journey and maybe perhaps if you're building an online brand or your e-commerce store. I think Sarah and Artizara's story has a really great message. And so it's really, I think, staying true and seeking and be very clear on your why and your purpose. So it's not just about, shifting units and selling items. It's not just the Amazon fulfillment. It's really connecting with people who value your why and what you're about. So, Sarah, thank you. That was, I think, a great way to kick off the discussion. And what I would invite anyone to do who's watching, and there's around 60 of you at the moment. Thank you so much for joining. If you've just come in the last few minutes, we're having a series of really fascinating, great success stories that we can learn from. So I would love to invite any of you to ask any questions. You can use the chat feature. You should see in your window there. There's a Q&A. There's a chat stream on the side. Feel free to leave any comments. But in particular, if you had any questions for Sarah about her journey, but anything practical as well. She's, got a great, it's North American based, but I know that she's got, global, her team has global, for a long time, it's had a big global support. So any questions for her, you can please go ahead and ask in the chat, and we'll probably come back to them when we meet as a panel to the end. So feel free to ask anything or share what are some things maybe your online business is having any challenges with. We've got some great people to learn from. So thank you, Sarah. We'll come back to you in a few minutes. I'd love to hear from and introduce some of our other panelists next. So I'm so pleased as well to welcome our next panelist, who is Mohammed Mekki. So Mohammed Mekki, he's based in Dubai. He's a really well-known, or I think well-loved treasure in the region for helping share the spirit and the know-how of entrepreneurship in UAE and in the region. So he's the co-founder of Astrolabs, which has really had an incredible part to play, I think, in the ecosystem within the region of entrepreneurship, locally and regionally and beyond. His own story is really impressive, and that any of you would find, like myself, a lot of inspiration in. But really, I think Mohammed is in a great place to share some insights and experiences on. Particularly this year, how some of the different, both the emerging e-commerce brands are adapting, and maybe some of the larger in the space. So, Mohammed, assalamu alaikum, welcome. Just want to make sure you can hear me okay. How are you doing today?
Yeah, alaikum salam. No, I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me, and it's a real pleasure to see you and to hear from Sarah and to be part of this.
Yeah, thank you so much for making the time, and we've got a great group of people online who, some of whom are learning and building their e-commerce, and others who are part of larger organizations, institutions that are having to learn and adapt and see perhaps where are maybe some trends this year, or what are some of the success stories or things that you might be seeing, but also maybe some of the things that are not working as well. And things to be aware of and learn from. So, both at a trend level and practical level, I know that what you do there in Astrolabs in UAE and also Saudi in the Kingdom, you're really at I call it the real heart or the pulse of the ecosystem of entrepreneurs. So it's really a blessing that you can join us. But Mohammed, maybe you can share a little bit about anything from your experience or any changes you're seeing across the spectrum, particularly this year, anything you're observing.
Yes, thank you. No, it definitely has been a roller coaster year, and we've, at Astrolabs have been involved over the last 7 years here in the region with the entrepreneurial and technology ecosystem through our co-working spaces here and in Saudi, and in a lot of the training programs that we run. So we touch a lot of from the startup side of things, so small companies that are trying to access the market, all the way through to the largest corporations as they're tackling some of their digital challenges. And so have had an opportunity to see how this year has impacted kind of both sides of the spectrum. Since Sarah was just speaking and about her own experience, I maybe start on the startup side of things, because there has been many more people, I would say, having that post-Fajr tossing and turning that she talked about, thinking maybe they've thought and have always wanted to start something, but never either had the time or took the initiative to do so. So we're seeing a lot more interest in actually starting up companies. To that end, we actually launched a course that's specifically focused on that. So we started an e-commerce launcher course, which basically is on a virtual platform as well, so that anybody can join. And we took participants through the whole process of deciding what it is I want to sell, how to do it, logistics, how to do the marketing, all these types of things. And we saw a real cross section of everything from folks straight out of university that are just at the beginning of their career, to ones that have had a lot more experience and have been chewing on something, and now's the time to execute on it. So the one trend I'd say is launching now, and just making it happen now. And on the startup side, the second trend that we're seeing is some pivoting that's been happening of existing startups to be able to kind of take advantage of this newly fully online mode of being. So even in our own case with our trainings, which were all in person, we had to quickly adjust and launch everything virtualized and shift what we do. We saw the same even with even bigger shifts that happened. We had a gaming company at Astrolabs that saw this opportunity to help with the big challenge around coming into doing the corporates being able to screen people as they're coming into their offices. So they built this like hardware device where it checks your temperature, it sprays your hands to desanitize them, does facial recognition, and they spun it up really quickly. So it was impressive to see an existing team pivot and just deal with the situation in that kind of a way. And then I'd shift just a couple remarks just on the larger side of the spectrum, because that's, I think, quite important. You have two camps. One side, which is large corporates that were already online and they were already selling, and this was just, a jolt to the system in terms of a ton more demand suddenly happened. And the trend there has been focusing much more on efficiency. So how do you, on two major fronts, efficiency in terms of marketing, so the spend, as there's a lot more players entering, it's becoming a lot more competitive on the ads and on the different platforms to get traffic. So thinking about how you're designing your actual experience on your e-commerce and online retail platform, so that you're taking those visitors that are coming in and you're converting them into buyers in a much more efficient way. So this whole area of conversion rate optimization has been a big trend where you can do more with the money that you're spending, basically. And then efficiency on the logistics side of things. I think that's been the other big trend is the challenge that a lot of these, especially ones that are dependent on third-party logistics providers, they're seeing these third parties crush under the weight of so much demand. And so the ones that have taken the time and invested the money into building out their own infrastructure have benefited, because they're able to deliver on an amazing customer experience, even with the challenge of so much demand in the system, right? So that's kind of like on the larger side. And the last thing I would say is the ones that were the traditional retailers that were not online and now are just scrambling. So that's the final bucket. And for them, I think it's the ones that have been that are more successful kind of understand that it's all about being able to get something up and start versus perfecting and worrying so much about the technology. That it's not just about the tech, actually. It's much more about, you can take something off the shelf, use very standardized systems that you don't need to spend months and years building in order to at least start, and then, be able to sequentially build up from there, versus ones that have just been cooking this entire time. We've seen some cases of that where they just, they're waiting until it's perfected before they bring it to market, and all the while they're losing on demand. So those are some of the high level trends that we've been seeing, all the way from the startups all the way through to the largest organizations in the region.
Yeah, that's a wonderful set of insights, and each one of those, and that could probably be its own webinar, in detail. So, I think, you're in a great place to sort of see, those camps and see some of the stories and, how some of the teams are succeeding, and, the last point there, which we might come back to when we do our group kind of Q&A. There's some great questions coming, by the way, guys. Thank you so much for please keeping those coming. So in a few minutes, we're going to go to introduce our last panelist, and then we'll come back to those questions together. But Mohammed, while I still got you, one story I caught there that I thought was quite fascinating is, with your own team and with Astrolabs itself, of course, being, quite a pioneer and I'd call it a pillar really of the ecosystem, how your own team had to pivot, fairly quickly to more of the online training program. So if we can take what really enabled that to happen well? What are some of the lessons that other teams might be able to learn from? Is how, because some companies are going to be like the jet ski that can quickly maneuver, and others are more like the big cruise liner going slowly. But what are some of the pieces that you thought were helpful for other teams, to transform and learn, in these kind of challenging times?
Yeah, it was definitely. I'm reflecting actually on what Mr. Abdullah said in the beginning, right, where he said that we're left with no choice, right, and that this has kind of just happened to us. Yes. The moment that it happened to us, where it hit the hardest, was we had a sold out, about like 45 people course that was supposed to happen, right actually here downstairs in our training facility. And it was supposed to start on Sunday, the beginning of the work week here. And it was a Friday evening, we got an email from the authorities saying that starting on Sunday, training institutes cannot hold trainings in person.
Wow.
So that was
okay.
that's the stage setting. And then on Saturday, basically, we had just all hands on deck. We came together, and I think that's the either you can just kind of put your hands up in the air and cancel and just try to or immediately try to solve everything at once and do your best at it. I think what we ended up doing was we picked a very simple technology platform that that we could just immediately deploy. One team was testing that. We called each and every one of the 45 people and spoke with them and explained to them and gave them the option of either doing this or delaying it until after the restrictions were lifted. We got the vast majority agreeing to try this thing out on digital. And I think the main learning for us on this point was, okay, so we did that, great, but then we realized that this first iteration was going to be garbage from our standards, right? It was just, it's a test. And so each day we did surveying, speaking with multiple of the attendees. We were, we held although we didn't have any attendees live, we held it in the office so that we could, quickly make adjustments. And we iterated on a daily basis on the course. And then in between the first version and the second version, the next time we ran it, we literally rebuilt the course for the new format because, surprise, surprise, people don't want to spend like 6 hours in front of Zoom learning just like they would do in a classroom, right? So that's a little bit of the picture, but I think it's like really rethinking from the ground up the offering for a digital platform is probably one of the biggest learnings. And don't be afraid to just break it down and start over again is a learning.
Brilliant. That's great insight. And I love that it's coming from a very first-hand experience. I think, that moment you described, many business leaders or owners or people in management leadership having some version of that moment of like, okay, something that was all planned, we need to adapt quickly, and we're forced with like Mr. Abdullah said at the start, we really have to make the change. So, but what I think is a key point of difference with what you were sharing there is that you continually learn and adapt. So, learning on a daily or, perhaps hourly basis, what's working, what's not, adapting and changing. And I think that's a great piece of advice for anyone that is leading a transformation, either a small, early stage business or a large organization is, the digital strategy isn't just delivered, it's actually lived and iterated regularly. So I think that was a great insight, Mohammed. Thank you. So what we'll do, if it's okay, and keep those questions coming, guys. We're really getting some fantastic questions. So and we'll get to them. So I think you, Aisha, Mariam, Jahar, I can see Sandra, Ali, Mohammed, Munir. Thank you so much for your questions. We're going to come around so just a few minutes. So what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce our third panelist here. And again, just to I think we're very blessed to have a really quite a diverse and very experienced panel of leaders that have really seen this directly, and we can learn from their experience really in the last 6 months. So I'd love to introduce, and very grateful that we've got Layal Akhoury joining us here. And Layal, welcome. Just want to make sure you can hear me okay. Great to see you.
I can hear you well, Peter. Thank you. And hello, Peter, Sarah, Mohammed. Thank you for having me today.
No, thank you, Layal. It's really it's a blessing that you're with us, and we really appreciate your time and expertise. So, for those who haven't come across Layal before, she's the regional director for MENA, USA, and Europe for Modanisa. And Modanisa is a brand that many people are and increasingly are more familiar with globally. Has been quite an incredible success story and is used as a case study, in many series, including Global Islamic Economy summits and reports. And I think it's really a great example of the potential and the opportunities, but also the global potential for a digital retail e-commerce brand. So I'd love, Layal, for you, if you're okay, to share maybe a little bit some of your insights or learnings. Maybe you could just introduce a little bit about Modanisa first, for those unfamiliar. But then, what you've learned this year, how is the company growing, learning, adapting, and any insights from that journey?
Sure, Peter. So basically, Modanisa is a worldwide modest fashion e-commerce player. We ship to over 130 countries, so we exist almost everywhere. And the purpose of Modanisa is very clear. We empower Muslim women basically with options to wear to look beautiful and fabulous every day. So we have a very large categories across all our websites, and we serve with very localized content across the globe. I think, let me start by saying to Sarah, amazing story, very inspiring, and thank you for sharing it. Obviously, I think with this pandemic, we have all agreed that it has accelerated quite well the shift of the e-commerce industry, whether it's small groups, big groups, or whoever it is, because the change is there and we have to just adapt to it. I think what we have noticed more is that we have lots of people that never shopped online and they are suddenly forced to do that. And at the same time, the people that were kind of barely shopping, they had to shop more. But this has raised the bar across all the players in terms of the experience that we can present to the consumer and how we can facilitate it for them given this whole pandemic. I hope this will end soon, by the way. So the main highlights that I think we can discuss today is the uplift in the demand and then the supply itself. And this has been seen across everywhere. If your supply chain is not ready to take this level of demand, obviously this has been catastrophic for some businesses. However, for others, it was quite a good opportunity because they are ready for this kind of scalability. So for Modanisa, for example, there was a major shift in the consumer behavior. People were shopping before to go to work, to go to schools, they were shopping for their events, weddings and stuff, and then suddenly they were shopping now for their homeware kind of thing. So we had to expand the catalog very quickly, and we have a great team that, apart from the consumer behavior, I think our team was able to adapt to this big change in terms of not coming to the office, working online, and then being able to reach out to every single supplier and making sure that all these women have access to whatever they need. So we were looking very closely at the data, where the customers are, what they are viewing, and making sure that we're going to get ready for that, and we did that in a very fast period of time. So we have seen, for example, the shift in the shopping, where they are shopping more of essentials rather than fancy stuff. Unfortunately, many people have lost their jobs, yet they still needed their essential stuff. So it is important that shift in terms of the e-commerce business. We don't want to be commercial. We want to really help people in order to come over this challenging time. And most importantly, it was that communication with the customer, because imagine with this high level of demand, you don't want the customer to be disturbed with the experience or reaching out to your customer service and loading these people with lots of requests. So we were very kind of agile in terms of how much we communicate with our customers and let them know what's going on. And I think the situation that we faced with the lockdowns and the closure of the airports, and obviously the aircraft limitation was very challenging. Yet we were able to continue to serve our customers worldwide. So we have used the passengers aircraft really to ship our products. We had communicated with them all across the time about this kind of disruption in the service, but we have appreciated really well that they kind of understand the situation and they adapted quite fast to that. And obviously, we have seen lots of communication happening, right, with people, our emails being sent every day. we were kind of very careful about what kind of communication we sent, how much this is important for you, how much we are personalized with the customer. And the ecosystem was not ready for that change. As Mohammed mentioned, the kind of that was a big struggle to adapt all this high demand and making sure that you have enough ecosystem, whether supply or deliveries or kind of any service, to be able to match that. So we had also our challenges and lots of learning throughout this journey, really. I think the most important thing is the new age. Definitely now with the opening, let's say, of the stores and the retail shops again, the e-commerce still exists and will be growing even further. But however, the omni-channel experience is very important, because you still want your customer to be shopping online, and they have to get a great experience, whether they are in the shop or whether they are online. And this is where I think it's a great opportunity for all people to look very closely at the data, at what the customers really want, to be close to them, and then to be able to give them a great experience. This is going to be great, because eventually with the high level of competition, you have to raise the bar and you have to be the leader in the best service to give to the customer. So I think that is amazing, Peter. It is just a new stage that will not go back. Eventually it will grow, it will continue. We have seen lots of startups that are amazing and great ideas of how they can even complement that shift in the consumer mindset. The responsibility is big on Modanisa and every e-commerce. We really need to be up to the expectations. We need to be able to give the customer what they deserve. And for us, we take it very seriously. So we are a big team that strives in terms of the service. We have a customer obsession, and we kind of just want to serve them the way that they deserve it. So it's a great time. I think we can take lots of advantages of this time, and hopefully, as I said, this pandemic will end soon and we can go back to our old lifestyle.
Well, that really sounds like quite an extraordinary few months. I mean, I think you've done well. I mean, you just to experience that, but also lead. And I think, just sharing that, having some, maintaining that quality, meaningful connection with the customers that have been loyal, and, and just renegotiating that, some of the challenges, like using, passenger aircraft, to do the shipping, expanding. I think you said, some of the range, you're looking at more homewares, like looking at the data showing the shift in your customers and really being focused on where they are. So instead of, perhaps the brand sort of pushing what it had probably planned to do, quickly looking and understanding and perhaps empathizing with where are the customers, what are their needs now. It sounds like you've done that really well. Any particular moments or stories or pieces that stand out to you, either good or bad? So Mohammed shared a really nice story of all of a sudden the moment having to, call, a whole group of people and make changes. I'm sure probably some of that this year with Modanisa. Any memorable moments or defining moments where you're proud of the team that you could think of?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would refer to the team, because I think the adaptation of the teams is very important, and they are the force behind whatever we do. So the first meeting that we had online was very frustrating, right? In terms of keeping their motivation up, engaging them, making them feel that, we can be together and we can also be online, especially that our team members across the company are very close to each other, and there is a big social aspect of it that is very important to them. So we had been doing lots of workshops and lots of activations to our team members. But I think it is just that that shift by itself was one of the greatest stories that you can still remember, and see that the team was able to adapt. And I think they were able to even drive. That was amazing, although there are lots of challenges, but it was there. And the commitment was highly recognized, because basically when you are at home, Peter, you are online all the time, right? So and we are not able to disconnect, basically. We are online, we are available. And that was quite interesting. With everything that's going on around you, you are still being able to focus and to drive and to be able to excel. That was one of the favorite moments for me.
Yeah, wonderful. Oh, that's great. Well, I mean, I think each of the points you shared could easily be its own webinar. But I think, appreciate just having some of those highlights and understanding really the story of this year. So really appreciate you sharing those insights. And what I'm going to do, if it's okay, thank you, Alael, we're going to, as a team in a minute, just visit some of the great questions that are coming in. But really appreciate, we've got over 70 people online. We've got some great questions coming in and that we're going to get to in a few moments. So just before we do that, what I'd like to do is open up our second poll question. So our second poll question, I think, is a really relevant and important question that a lot of people are probably asking right now, both as shoppers and as people leading business and e-commerce. So I'd like to ask everyone and participants, what area of digital retail do you expect the most growth? Is it through independent brand websites and e-commerce? For example, digital native vertical brands. Are we looking maybe just through major platforms like Amazon? And the like in the region, or are we going to see more growth in C, direct social media sales through microtransactions through Instagram, Facebook, or are there going to be new forms of online purchasing? Should we expect to see a new era, which is a hybrid or a change of these things? So please go ahead. The poll questions should come up there. I'd love to see what kind of responses we get. And to be fair, I think no one quite knows exactly the answer. And it's the same way 12 months ago. We didn't think this would be the topic of our event. There's a big change. It's a new era. Some things will stay the same. Things will change a lot. So please go ahead and do your poll. So we'll come back to the results in just a couple of minutes. So guys, now I've been looking forward to this moment, which is to get to some of the great questions that will be coming through. And thank you so much, everyone who's been doing that. I can see Atik, Sandra, Aisha, Mariam, and Johar, quite a few. So what I'd love to do is invite our panelists back as a group. We can all imagine us sitting around a panel, but in a virtual way this time. One of the questions I'm going to start with, I think, is probably being asked by people that are finding themselves in a new situation. Maybe they've had a job change. Maybe they've lost some things that were planned to be. Maybe they've had to change or relocate. So Sandra asked the question, what is the best advice you can give to someone who is completely new to this? What are the key foundational principles for them to be aware of while starting out? So I'm going to actually ask Sarah this question. But Sarah, just before I go ahead with that, we do have the poll results that have come in, and there's a very interesting almost even spread here from the question. So the winner was the first one, so independent brand websites, e-commerce platforms. So maybe your DNVBs, digital native vertical brands, is an interesting area to explore at independent brands. And then second was B, third was C, and then D was at 12%. So great, very interesting to see where everyone's thinking. So Sarah, and then maybe I'll go to Mohammed to answer Sandra's question about, starting out. Maybe for some people it's a fresh chapter. This is the chance to try this e-commerce idea they've always had. Maybe the pandemic's presented opportunities. You've had much experience in this area and have done it really from the ground up. So what insights or advice would you share to someone just starting out in the space?
Thank you, Sandra. A great question. And I would say three things. So know your why and start small and test. And then I would add a fourth. If you really feel your why, don't give up. Keep at it. I think the starting small aspect, especially when you are trying something new, mitigates some of your risk and gives you a chance to try things and iterate until you get to a place where, you have a great product market fit, and then you can scale from there. So I hope that answers your question.
I think it was well said and very succinct. And I know, it's like they asked a great master of calligraphy to do a piece of work, and it did one stroke that was perfect. And like, well, it only took you 1 second, but he'll say, well, it took me 1 second, but 25 years of experience. So I think, Sarah, you're the calligrapher with the many years of experience. So great answers and very timely. Mohammed, you of course have built your own startups and have had successful journey and exits and everything there. But you work and train, a team that does that. What are some of the pieces of advice you give to probably quite a few people that come to your organization looking for direction and advice?
Yeah, I think Sarah nailed it. I mean, I would just reemphasize one of the points that she made, which is about testing. And I think that a common mistake that we see is that an entrepreneur might have an idea that's been sitting in his or her mind, and then they go from the mind to tech and building things and, creating this perfect version of it. And then, after a long period of time and a lot of investment into it, then take it to market. And it's really the ABCs of startups, which is that you're supposed to go speak to customers early. But no matter how much one repeats that, it's just the most common mistake that we see, right? It's just that you kind of do too much baking in your own mind oven, and you don't go and test to see if anybody wants your cookies, basically. So you have to fashion a test that is easy, and that's a start small piece that Sarah mentioned, something that you can go quickly with, that tests your thesis. And so that's the single biggest piece of advice that I would give.
Oh, great advice, and I've seen firsthand, been fortunate to see some of the stories that have come through Astrolabs and through the ecosystem. The ones that have done that and really taken that advice to heart have iterated and gone on to great success in that way. So it's something that we hear shared, but really the people that I've seen do that well, it very much, that's the learning takes them to the right path. So I'm going to ask actually Layal for the next question. Comes from Mohammed Sari, and he asks, how can we compete with the likes of Amazon and eBay? It's very difficult to stand out with them around. So I think this is a great question for Modenisa. How have you been experiencing that journey, Layal?
It's definitely a great question. Well, I think each one of them has their own value proposition, and what they present to the customer is very important, whether, the DNA of this brand. So, for example, if you want to shop for, let's say, modest fashion, you need to be going to a website that will give you the biggest variance in terms of categories and items, right? So you cannot find it in somewhere else. It becomes a secondary for other competitors. But most importantly, Peter, it is really, the competition is there, but I think the more you localize, the more you personalize, and the more you are focused on your own target is very important. Definitely, we look at our competitors very closely, but it's important that how you look at your own brand and where you want to reach, basically. That North Star is where you want to reach, and how you can customize your experience to the customer is important. So I think even with the presence of the giant e-commerce businesses, people can still thrive throughout their own e-commerce, and they can still do really well. They just need to be focused on their goal. I think that business model that you create at the beginning is basically very important to stay focused on it and to optimize it further.
Yeah, beautifully said, and it's been fascinating. I think many people just even anecdotally looking at the growth of Modenisa, and not just in terms of the economic and the scale and the reach, but also just as a brand, how it's people becoming familiar with it, and the presence there, and I think how you've been able to form those relationships, and I think that's what I've understood from some successful e-commerce brands, is really creating that unique personality and that uniqueness, that positioning that that you were referring to, is and building that, because they're the Amazons, the eBays are going to have a certain direction. So there's the classic adage from Seth Godin, which is when everyone zigs, zag. So it's, there's always, I think, an abundance of, the opportunity of people wanting to buy and having things isn't changing, but what's changing is their ability to travel and buy and go to retail. So it's how we adjust and what are the choices. So I think that's a great response, Layal. We've got a few other great questions coming in, and I want to make time for everyone. Mohammed, there's a few questions coming in around things related to technology or platforms and infrastructure. For example, Jahar is asking, someone, I think Mohammed's asking, with technology advancements happening daily, how do retailers decide where to invest? Which I think is a really good question you touched on a little earlier. And another one sort of perhaps relating to that is digital retail is requiring local infrastructure and affordable to make it affordable to, if you look at, he's mentioned cloud types of services. There's a couple of comments there related to technology and making the right choices. So any feedback you might have there?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they think digital retail and e-commerce, the first thing that comes to mind is what tech platform, right? Or how do I build it? And what are the features that I need? And, what's the best? So, especially within a large organization, you end up with this situation where you have big project teams that are spending, sometimes we've seen, even more than a year, right? Years of working and again, back to the baking point, right? They're just like baking and baking and baking, trying to fix and create this perfect solution where always, whenever you take whatever you've baked and it goes to market, there's going to be a harsh reality of what consumers, how they actually react to it and what actually happens. So I'll give an example. Here is one of the largest, traditional retailers launched e-commerce, and I used them to buy some, home appliances, and I had a very shaky experience. Let's say it was actually quite bad, and
I think I saw this on your LinkedIn or something. You were sharing a bit of a bit of an experiment you were running, which looked very entertaining.
So what ended up happening is I actually ended up having coffee with the person who runs that experience, and because I actually wanted to give some direct feedback in order to have it make an impact on the customer experience going forward. I mean, just it felt like it'd be too bad if it just remained something in my head. And obviously there's like layers and layers of complexity. It's even more complex when you're dealing with a large organization that's trying to deploy an e-commerce platform. In this case, the complexity was that they were simultaneously running a marketplace where they're actually facilitating small sellers to sell on their platform as well as their own products. And the experience was it just fell apart. So I won't go into all the details of it, but I would just say that on your specific point, more important than what tech platform, what specific filtration features, and all this type of stuff, it's thinking about what is the end user experience given what I'm trying to bite off here. And maybe in their case, for instance, they shouldn't have simultaneously launched this marketplace feature plus their own without really nailing either one. And sequentially build things for an amazing experience, because that in the end is what leads to more sales, because you need the referrals and you need that engine to work. So I think I always push back on that tech question, because I think it's not the right question. I think it's usually it's not the right starting point. Let's say at a certain stage you do need to make those decisions, but the starting point is usually simpler than that.
Yeah, great answer, really helpful. And I think we've got a good set of attendees and participants asking a number of things related. So thanks, Mohammed. Sarah, I was hoping to come back to you we're almost towards wrap-up phase, but just a couple more really good questions coming in. And I think people will be really interested in your story as well. But there's two questions here that I'm going to take and kind of link together. So one is a question about delivery has been quite a challenge. Delivery and logistics, especially with international shipping, is really Sandra is making a comment about that. But also, I'm going to make a connection to another question from Atiq, who says one of the major challenges in his market where he's based is the trust. How do we build trust? How can we win and develop trust? And I'm sort of thinking to bring those questions together, because with your own experience and with Artizara, how have you been able to build that trust over time? And does that have a link to delivery, for example? Like, I guess trying to, help people get deliveries done in a difficult situation. But I'm not sure. So yeah, any comments there or thoughts, and what's been your experience in those things?
So great question. The trust aspect is super important, and trust is built over time. One of the ways to build trust in an e-commerce setting is to have a very open door policy in terms of returns. So we were one of the first to offer free returns to our customers within the U.S. so people can shop more risk-free. Also, reviews are super important. How do you build trust? People like to hear from other people who've experienced your service and your products and what they have to say. So it takes time, certainly inviting reviews, and certainly when you're starting out, having a very open policy in terms of returns are concerned leads to building trust. And then, if mistakes will happen, and nobody's perfect. I think rectifying them quickly, taking ownership, and just treating the customer the way you would want to be treated in such a situation. Because remember, in an e-commerce situation, people are buying things sight unseen, and they may be landing, halfway around the world. You just have to take the customer at their word. Certainly. Getting into sort of a back and forth with a customer, even though you may be right, overall in the long term may be probably a losing proposition. It's just easier to stand by what they say and just deal with them in the best possible manner.
Yeah,
I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. No, great. I think that was a great response, and certainly, there's of course many studies and examples of building that loyalty even by a certain percentage really benefits the business. Directly. There's studies from Bain and others famously where building 10% more loyalty can have a significant more profitable impact. So I think particularly in this era, this new age, if you like, of digital retail, is how do we maintain and build that trust, but also navigating profitability and making sure that, with, delivery challenges, with, finding the right level of, policies for global shipping is something that I think everyone's navigating still. So I think, we've got all three of you are giving good examples of how, we can be agile in learning. I might come now to just perhaps a last question, and Layala, I thought you might be well placed to just give a comment or an insight. So someone was asking here about in this new era and this transformation about employment. So for example, with this more digital direction. Is that naturally there's job change and perhaps a lot of job loss for traditional retailers and people that have experience there? Is there a link, or have you seen any links between the growth or the change you're experiencing at Modanisa or more widely with e-commerce? Is there a link with employment and traditional retail? Is there any connection there, or is it just a new era where a blank canvas, if you like? Any thoughts there before we wrap up?
Peter, it's a great question again, but I think this pandemic has shown everyone that you can do the job anywhere. Like, we are not anymore linked to a place or an office or kind of a certain country. We have great talent across the globe, and at Modanisa we have opened remotely kind of working environment wherein people from US, from Europe, from MENA, they can apply and they can work still for any region that they have the right skill and talent set for that. But basically, with this new change, I would invite everyone to just ride on it, because basically what you have is It is not the presence in the office that matters anymore. You just need to be really kind of very highly motivated. You have to learn a lot, to spend time on learning lots of areas of the business. Communicating with others is very important. And obviously having these one-to-one catch-ups with kind of your colleagues on a weekly basis will keep you in the loop. And I think there is a big also responsibility on human resources and people in the company and the culture to do this shift, because with this employment kind of unfortunate loss, we have seen lots of people migrating back to their countries, yet they are still having the right experience of the markets itself. So these people can still be hired, can still work remotely, and I think they will do great because they will be at their comfort zone at the same time. So I think it's a great time for people to hire remotely and for people to work remotely. It's a great combination.
Wonderful. No, that's great. Good to end on an optimistic note as well. And I think that's good encouragement for all of us, regardless of what size of team you're in, or maybe you had a change this year unexpectedly and you're looking at what's the next chapter or the new horizon. I think we've got three great leaders on the panel with us that we can look to as great examples for learning, adapting, changing, and this sense of the possibility. So, this, of course, it's been a, very difficult year for a lot of people, but with that difficulty, I think there is a new age, a new potential, and it's a great opportunity for all of us on the panel and on all the participants, all of you who've stayed and joined, ask ourselves, well, what does that next chapter look like? What is that potential for us? And I want to thank you all so much for joining. Thank you so much to Layal, to Sarah, Mohammed. You've all been wonderful and inspiring, and really appreciate your time. And for all the participants who joined, thank you so much. It's been a great session. This session, just to reference, was organized by Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center and Dubai Chamber, and in strategic partnership with Refinitiv. And everyone, we look forward to welcoming you again. And we've got our sixth and final session for the GIES series on the 10th of November. And that's going to be a fascinating one. Really at the heart of any change, I think, is the digitization of banking. Lessons learned in 2020. So we look forward to seeing you there, and you can check all the links out on the various socials. Thank you all so much again. Have a beautiful morning, afternoon, or evening, and can't wait to see you all online and what you get up to in your next chapter ahead. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining.